There are many interesting books that are in eternity in the Shamayim. I'm going to focus on the Book of Remembrance. Let's take a look at that together.
I hear the farmers crying, kingdom come.
Shalom, my friends. In the book of Exodus, chapter 32, verse 33, Yahweh says to those who sin against him that they will be blotted out of, quote, my book, close quote, says Yahweh. You'll see also in Isaiah 34:16, Yahweh's book. In Numbers chapter 5, verse 23, we see a book of curses. And again in Numbers chapter 21, verse 14, we see the book of the wars of Yahweh. Ezekiel chapter 2, verses 9 and 10, we see a book of lamentations, mourning, and woe. Then we have the book of Chai, that's the book of life, which we can see in Psalm number 69, verse 28, Philippians chapter 4, verse 3, and in the book of Revelation, chapter 3, verse 5, chapter 13, verse 8, chapter 17, verse 8, chapter 20, verses 12 and 15, and chapter 21, verse 27. Now, I'm going to be focusing on Yahweh's Book of Remembrance. First, I want to read to you from the book of Job, that's Job, chapter 14, verses 13 and 14, where Job says, if only you, Yahweh, would hide me in the grave, conceal me until your wrath turns away. Appoint me a time, and remember me. Verse 14, he goes on to say, if a man dies, would he live again? All the days of my struggle I wait till my change comes. Here in the book of Job, considered to be the oldest book of the Word, Job is talking about the net chatef. He's talking about the harpazo, the rapture. He's talking about all the days of his struggle. He waits until his change comes. Shaul, that's Paul. In Corinthians, he talks about this change that the corruptible must put on incorruptible. Talking about the net chatef, that's the Aramaic Hebrew word. The Greek word is harpazo, the Latin word is rapturo, and in English commonly known as the rapture. But here Job is talking about it. If a man dies, would he live again? And he talks about waiting until his change comes. He's talking about Elohim hiding him in the grave and concealing him until his wrath turns away, appointing him a time and remembering him. He's talking about the book of remembrance. Now, at the end of my videos where I recently did a study on 1st and 2nd Thessalonians, at the end I did a synopsis or a summary saying that, for me personally, the key word in the book of 1st Thessalonians is the word net chatef, harpazo in the Greek, rapturo in the Latin, commonly known as the rapture, And who gets taken? The who are the Kodeshim. Who are the Kodeshim? Kodeshim are the dedicated ones, those who make Elohim number one on a list of one. Elohim being the most important and the primary focus on their days every day. Then I went on to say that the key word for me in 2 Thessalonians was marod otah. That's the Aramaic Hebrew. In the Greek, the word is genomehi. And in the English, the word is taken. And talking about the Ruach HaKodesh, Yahweh's Spirit, being taken off of the earth, and then the lawless one being revealed. Well, when the Ruach is taken, that, I believe, is referring to the Netchetef, the harpazo, the rapture. And who gets taken with the Ruach? Those who have the Ruach not only indwelling in them, but growing in them. Those who have been filled with the Ruach. And who are those? They again are the Kodeshim, the dedicated ones. And that's what this book of remembrance is all about. If we look at Matthew, Matith Yahu, chapter 7, verses 21 through 23, Yeshua, our Messiah, Mashiach, is speaking. He says, "Not everyone who says to me, Adonai, Adonai," meaning Master, Master, shall enter into the Malchut, the kingdom, the reign of the Shamayim, the heavens. But he who is doing the desire of my Father, he who is doing the desire of Yahweh in the Shamayim. Verse 22, he says, "Many shall say to me in that day, Adonai, Adonai, have we not Navu prophesied in your name, and cast out demons in your name, and done many mighty works in your name?" Verse 23, he says, "And then I shall declare to them, I never knew you. I never knew you. Depart from me, you who work lawlessness." I covered this in my previous video about lawlessness. But he says, I shall say to them, I never knew you. He might say, I don't remember you. You're not in the book of remembrance. Those who are to be remembered. I believe, it's my personal belief, that this book of remembrance is a book that lists those who are taken in the Netchetef, the harpazo, the rapture. Where do we find this this book of remembrance? For that, we go to the book of Malachi, commonly known as Malachi. And we want to look at chapter 3, specifically verse 16. But let's look at what leads up to that, starting with verse 13 in Malachi chapter 3. It says, Yahweh himself is speaking. He says, "Your words have been harsh against me," said Yahweh. "But you have said, what have we spoken against you?" You have said, it is worthless to serve Elohim, and what did we gain when we guarded his charge, and when we walked as mourners before Yahweh of hosts? And now we are calling the proud baruk, blessed. Not only are the doers of wickedness built up, but they also try Elohim and escape. Then shall those who revere Yahweh speak to one another, and Yahweh will listen and hear, and a book of remembrance will be written before him, Yahweh, of those who revere Yahweh, and those who think upon his name, Yahweh. A book of remembrance will be written before him, of those who revere him, and of those who think upon his name. How many people do you know who think upon his name? How many people have said that prayer, Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, and never thought what name? Millions, I imagine billions. So we have this book of remembrance. People's names are written in it. Those who put the Father first. Those who know that the only way to him is through his Son. Those who have not only the indwelling Ruach, but the filling of the Ruach, because they seek him every day, all day long. They esteem the Father. They put him first in everything. And they think about his name. These are the ones who will be taken. These are the Kodeshim. Now the word for remembrance in the Aramaic Hebrew is zichron. And here we have the slide with the Otiot for this. It is spelled Zayin, Kaf, Resh, Wa, and Nun. Zichron. It comes from the root word Zachar, which is simply Zayin, Kaf, Resh. That's the root word. And it means to mark someone as to be recognized. However, the Book of Remembrance literally is the Book of Zichron. And it is spelled, as I said, Zayin. That's the digging tool. It has to do with remembering the Sabbath, Shabbat. It has to do with spiritual man. Father says, I am a spirit, and I am seeking those who will worship me in spirit. Someone asked me recently, how do we worship him in spirit? Basically, it's by not worshiping him in the flesh. You know, we read in Matthew 7 where those come up to Yeshua and they say, we did all these things in your name. Prophesied. We cast out demons in Yeshua's name. Did many mighty works. Healed the sick in his name. And then he says, I don't remember you. I never knew you. And I explain, in my recent video about lawlessness, the word knew has to do with intimacy. You were never intimate with me. They were worshiping him in the flesh. They were prophesying in the flesh. They were casting demons out in the flesh. Many mighty works were being done in the flesh. Is that possible? Yeah. The devil will do deceptive works to lead people on. to encourage them to worship him in the flesh and not in the spirit. So, yeah. Zayin also has to do with being fruitful without not only the indwelling Ruach, but without the filling of the Ruach. No one can be fruitful. Next we have Kaf, the open palm. It talks about bending and allowing what? Allowing the Ruach indwelling to guide you, listening to the voice of the Ruach, not to your own fleshy desires. It has to do with taming yourself, subduing yourself. It has to do with the work of Yeshua, because he certainly tamed himself. He certainly subdued himself, and he walked to the crucifixion. And Kaf has to do with the filling of the Ruach. It talks about bending, allowing, taming, subduing. This is a matter of self-control. If you look at the fruit of the Ruach, see Galatians 5:22. You'll see the last thing listed is self-control. Without the indwelling Ruach, without the filling of the Ruach, no one has self-control. It's not possible. Therefore, it's not possible to tame yourself or to subdue yourself or to bend to the will of Elohim. Then we have Resh, picture of a man's head. We've talked about this one a lot. It has to do with who your headship is and what your thoughts are on. Elohim being your headship, your thoughts are on him. Your thoughts are on his word. You are seeking him. If money is someone's headship, their thoughts are on money, and they will serve it, and so on. Then we have Wa, the tent peg, pitching your tent with Elohim. Elohim pitching his tent with you. And finally, Nun, picture of the seed, meaning unstoppable motion, talking about offspring and heirs. Abraham's offspring, Yeshua's heirs. So, a book of remembrance, a book of zichron, a book listing those who dig into the Father's word, worship him in spirit, reveal the fruit of the Ruach in their actions. Zayin. Kaf, those who have self-control, they tame and subdue themselves to the Father's will, and they also reveal the filling of the Ruach in their actions. Resh, those whose headship is Elohim, those whose thoughts are on him. The Kodeshim, specifically those who make him number one on a list of one in their lives. It's all about Elohim. Wa, those who are pitching a tent with Elohim, those whom Elohim is pitching a tent with. And Nun, those who have the seed of Yeshua, the seed of Mashiach, growing in them. They are the offspring of Abraham and the heirs of Yeshua. I just wanted to do this, tying it in with my study on 1st and 2nd Thessalonians. If you haven't watched those videos, watch those. Watch this one again. We're talking about the Net Chetef, those who are going to be taken off the earth before the day of Elohim's wrath. a day that I believe is fast approaching. And who are those? They are the Kodeshim mentioned in 1 Thessalonians and in 2 Thessalonians, those whose names are written in Yahweh's Book of Remembrance. I hope and I pray, my friends, that this study has been a berekah to you and yours. And until next week, Shalom, my friends.
Let your kingdom come. Whoa. It's an ancient story that still gets told to those who hear and those who don't, by prophets and trees and things out of the blue. But once that cry has reached your ears, your heart gets filled by what you hear, and what you hear is just the sound